This one was tough to take for me. Let me just disclosure here. Andrew Pollack is a friend. Andrew Pollack spoke last night. Who is Andrew Pollack? Many of you know him, some may not. Andrew Pollack is the father of Meadow Pollack, who was tragically killed in the Parkland school massacre. We are going to get through this one. This was tough for me because really I melted on the air last night. I'm going to play 4 cuts from this one because you need to hear and take in every single second of what he said last night. Now, you would think Andrew Pollack, if he wasn't the strong man he is and was weaker, that he would come out and fall prey to nonsensical narratives like, oh my gosh, if we just would have had gun control, my daughter would be alive, and he'd go out and parrot it for the Democrats. But Andrew Pollack is a strong man who thinks for himself. He wasn't asked to come out and talk about the Second Amendment. He was asked to talk about his experiences and how President Trump dealt with him after the tragic, unimaginable death of his teenage daughter. Here's video portion 1. His speech was about 5 minutes. I cut a little bit of it out for time. One of the portions where he hits the media. It's not to cover for the media. It's just to give you the real highlights. I want to make sure I got this all in. Here's part 1 of Andrew Pollack's speech, about a minute, this part, where he addresses what happened to his daughter. Just blown away. Check this out.
2018, a gunman walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and changed my life forever. My name is Andrew Pollack. His name isn't worth saying. One of the seniors walking in the hallways that day was my beautiful daughter, Meadow. She was just months away from graduating and beginning a new life. We were so proud of the woman she had become. But in the hallway on that 3rd floor, the gunman saw Meadow and shot her down the hallway, hitting her 4 times. After she was shot and on the floor, she crawled over to another student, a freshman girl, to protect her. She draped her body over her, and then the scumbag gunman shot my daughter at point-blank range 5 more times, killing Meadow and the girl she was shielding. She had a whole life ahead of her, and in that life, she could have done anything and been anything. So many moments that I waited so long for were taken from me. I didn't get to drop her off at college. I didn't get to walk her down the aisle. But every moment was taken from her, and for what? I never wanted this to become a political spectacle, but it did. I never wanted to meet the president like this, but I did. I was invited to the White House. The truth is, I had just buried my daughter that week. I really wasn't interested in public events like a tour or a photo op. I was interested in answers and solutions.
I have nothing to add. Speechless. What do you say? The answer is you don't say anything. You move on to the second portion of that because I just wanted you to get an idea of what this man has been through. Thank the Lord, and I am not using his name in vain. Most of you will never experience the horror this man has lived through. Let's go to part 2 of Mr. Pollack's speech, where he talks about after this tragic death of his daughter, Meadow, by the scumbag. It's his name. He talks about who President Trump really is and how Trump handled it. Check this out.
So if the president wanted to meet me personally, I said I'd go. They said, of course, that was his plan. At the White House, my family and I sat with the president in the Oval Office and told him about Meadow. I told him what we knew. I told him that his administration needed to take a closer look at what went wrong and why. And I got to see who President Trump really is. He's a good man and a great listener, and he cuts through the BS. Then the president did what he said he would do. He took action. He formed a school safety commission that issued dozens of recommendations to make schools safer. But I'll bet you never heard about that. Instead, the media turned my daughter's murder into a coordinated attack on President Trump, Republicans, and our Second Amendment. In fact, when President Trump asked me and other parents of children that were murdered in school shootings to join him as he announced the commission's findings, the media's first question wasn't about protecting kids. Shockingly, they asked about the government shutdown.
Isn't our media great, folks? Aren't they just terrific? You have the father of a beautiful young woman shot dead at point blank range by a scumbag. And you think you maybe want to inquire about what President Trump and him were talking about to fix the situation and prevent these tragedies in the future? And your first question's about the government shutdown? That's who the media, many of them, that's who they are. How do you, the most amazing 5-minute speech on the personal ramifications of safety and security I've ever heard. He went on to talk about what President Trump actually did, again, and how you probably haven't heard about much of it at all, because the media's only interest is not about addressing problems. It's about attacking President Trump because they have a mental disease. That's why. Check this out.
I learned that gun control laws didn't fail my daughter. People did. The gunman had threatened to kill his classmates before. He had threatened to rape them. He had threatened to shoot up the school. Every red flag you could imagine. But the school didn't just miss these red flags. They knowingly ignored them. Far-left Democrats in our school district made this shooting possible because they implemented something they called restorative justice. This policy, which really just blames teachers for students' failures, puts kids and teachers at risk and makes shootings more likely. But it was billed as a pioneering approach to discipline and safety. I was just fine with the old approach to discipline and safety. It was called discipline and safety.
Powerful. I was fine with the old approach to discipline and safety, also known as discipline and safety. If I were a betting man, I'm not. But if I were, I'd bet my right thumb on it that every listener in my audience prefers the old method of discipline and safety as well, called discipline and safety. You probably haven't heard about restorative justice. Why? Because the media probably wants to ignore it. The fact that the scumbag who shot up the school had red flags everywhere. And not only were they ignored, but ignored on the record. Not that they ignored, they had records of it, and they still just let it happen. But yeah, let's blame it on gun control and the Second Amendment. Why? Because it's a convenient narrative for the leftist activists in the media who can't stand you, can't stand me, and can't stand anyone who dares to believe that a Second Amendment to me is not about guns, it's about personal protection. Firearm is just a vehicle to enact my God-given right to defend myself and my family. Let me go to the final clip from this. Just going to let Andrew finish out his speech because it really was the most powerful moment in a night filled with heart-wrenching, emotional appeals to American greatness and to fix this country. Andrew Pollack.
But the Obama-Biden administration took Parkland's bad policies and forced them into schools across America. When President Trump rescinded Obama's guidance on restorative justice policies, he put an end to that. And that meant the world to me. It's hard to tell how much Mr. Biden understands about what happened at Parkland. Mr. Biden has campaigned on bringing back restorative justice as part of his unity platform with Bernie Sanders and has pledged to implement it in school districts across America. But he doesn't even seem to know when the shooting happened. He said that he was vice president when it happened, but he wasn't. Mr. Biden may not know when my daughter was murdered, but I do. February 14, 2018.
Biden doesn't even know. He doesn't even know when the shooting happened. I know. You know, Andrew Pollack will never forget. You know, I know when it happened because I was at CPAC that year when it happened. And I was sitting in my room getting ready to go downstairs for an event. CPAC's a conservative political action conference in Maryland. And I was in my hotel room in National Harbor. Joe was there. And we were sitting in the room. I was getting ready to go downstairs. I don't know what you were up to, Joe, when it happened, but Andrew Pollack was at the White House and they gave him a microphone. This is just a week after his daughter was killed. And Pollack, who had no time for BS, said into the microphone, because that was my daughter. That was my daughter. It was absolutely heartbreaking. It broke your soul. A lot of us have children. You don't have to have children to understand that pain. Most of you have experienced some loss in your life. But if you have children, it really rings your bell that much more. Because that was my daughter, he kept saying. And to people who saw that, Paul and I think I was late for the event because I couldn't move. I was glued to the television because I had never seen such raw emotion in an event that was supposed to be at the White House and relatively formulaic. It was supposed to be about school safety, and Andrew doesn't have time for BS, and he just told it like it was. I'll never forget that. There are moments in your life you never forget. Space shuttle, Reagan was shot. That moment was one of those moments. I remember exactly what I was thinking, which was, I don't care what's coming up next. I have to see this. Thank you, Andrew, for really one of the most incredible speeches I have ever seen. By the way, did you know, just on a policy note, because there was policy in there as well, even though the emotion of that speech was just heartbreaking, restorative justice. Vote for Biden, right? He's a nice guy. That's what they keep telling you. You want these scumbags back in your kids' school? You want restorative justice? People threatening your kids being welcomed back with open arms as if your kids don't matter? You want that? Biden's your guy. Look it up. Oh, but he's a nice guy, right? Trump's the bad guy, right? We don't like his tweets. Your kids matter to you? They matter to me.
You just heard Dan Bongino.